Welcome back to another episode of the Deductionist podcast, my lords, ladies, and gentlemen. I hope you are keeping well this fine Thursday evening, morning, afternoon, night. I don't know what time it is, wherever you are, whenever it is that you're picking this up, but welcome. Um, so we're here today. We're going to be speaking about this metaphorical practice for the research and development we go through in our particular fields of people reading and deduction and knowing things. Right? It was the man himself who was quoted as saying, well, he's not real, is he? But it was the man himself who was quoted as saying, I make it my business to know what other people do not. Right? And there is a man, a performer, if you will, that went as Alexander, the man who knows. And this type of philosophical practices is something that sits at the guiding light of all the work that I do, that I encourage others to do. Right? There is this um egoic boundary that we tend to go by with all people, but particular to this field, right? Whether you're in behavioral research, investigation, or you have a YouTube channel and everything else that exists in between, right? There is this egoic boundary that exists that either helps you if it is that you know how to navigate it, or it hurts you because there is this kind of uh, binary element in terms of those who are searching simply to appear to be right, and those who are simply searching simply for what works, right? And what works has a decided node of imperfection about it. It isn't as seemingly sexy and solid because there is continual knowledge, so there is continual growth and change and tearing apart old data, building up new stuff in order to define what it is that you can know in any given situation, right? And whereas this Alexander fella wasn't exactly the most decent human being on the planet. You know, we'll get into a little look at him in a second, but the kind of practice of being the person who knows. Like, just think about that for a second. There have been many performers that have operated with this as well. Paul Brook being the most recent one that I'm aware of, that have kind of dabbled with this aspect, and that's what kind of drives my learning and knowledge and education, and obsession with all things memory is to be the one who knows, right? To like, I'm not attached to technology for information. I saw something online the other day, which was an AI wearable note taker. An AI wearable note taker, and it almost annoyingly angered me a little bit. Like, have we fallen that far that we need mechanical assistance in order to help us pay attention now and make sure we have all of the details? How much more of a refusal to work or pay attention do we need or can we use, right? And so this kind of driving light of continually learning and continually exploring all of the things that you're interested in, whether it's learning a new instrument, learning a new language, learning a new technique, learning a new memory technique, using that to learn other things, developing your observation, developing your knowledge around nonverbal communication, whatever it is, this consistent forging of new neural pathways or rewiring of old ones to take care of better practices in order to be the one that knows in any given situation is a powerful position to be in, right? But again, it comes with that inherent laziness almost, right? If it is that you're reading a book on anything, right? Whatever it is that you're reading a book on, outside of fiction, obviously. If you're reading, Harry Potter or Sherlock, for example, there are certain elements that you don't have to question further because it's not pretending to teach you anything. It's just telling you a story. With it is where it is in terms of the things that um, purport to teach us things, there is a degree of acceptance of this person has said this, they have a book, therefore it must be spot on. No, no. If you're going to truly be the person that knows, there needs to be an integration and a consolidation of the information that's learned. That's why we get into trouble with our attention spans at the minute. And the more I read about the stats on this area of attention spans, that for those online, it fluctuates between 3 and 7 seconds. Like that is upsettingly small. That is upsettingly small. And yeah, anyway, so this guy, Alexander, whose full name is Claude Alexander Conley, excuse me, Claude Alexander Conley, born June 30th, 1880. Began his career in vaudeville, I guess you'd call it. His speciality being mentalism and psychic reading, and there was this adaptation of like a kind of Oriental persona, and where he would wear all the robes and turbans and hats and feathers and use crystal balls as a prop. And his act primarily revolved around answering sealed questions from the audience, which he claimed to do through mental telepathy and mind reading. Right? If you're looking to uh, kind of go into the details of those types of things a little bit further, they're known as question and answer acts, Q&A acts. And then between 1915 and 1924, good afternoon, Jennifer. Between 1915 and 1924, Alexander was one of the highest paid mentalists in the world. Right, his performances were almost known for theatricality and innovation. But he developed early kind of versions of electrical stage effects. His assistants would covertly gather information about audience members and transmit it through the earpieces to kind of give the illusion of psychic ability. Right? He gets rich off it and then retires. He's put out a ton of books in the field of mentalism and the like. But this is not what I'm connected with. Like he was he was a terrible person. Right? He was married several times through his life. To say his relationships were bumpy would be um would be kind of generous. From what I read about him, he would have been at least the kind of focus of 2 or 3 BBC investigations. Right, he faced accusations of bigamy. He was known to have married 5 women, I think, and it was sometimes without the divorces that were in play there. He was involved in several legal disputes, accused of fraud on multiple occasions, and the accusations stemmed from his psychic readings and his mentalism acts in general, where some claimed he used deceptive practices to extract money from his clients. Despite the controversies, he's obviously gone on to be really successful and leave this lasting impact in the world of magic and mentalism. But what am I really saying with this? I'm saying that If you're to truly be the person that knows, what you use it for is kind of up to you. Right? I use it in my areas of investigative work. There, you could use it for mentalism if you want. I did for many years, still do. You can use it in business practice. You can use it in therapeutic practice. You can use it in really anything that denotes a purpose for information gathering. Right? Oh, focus. There we go. Let me just kind of see if I can tweak that around a little bit. There we go. Yeah. So this is why the focus of this particular analogy is being the person that knows, right? If it is that we build into our kind of habitual reflexes the collection of data, the collection of information, right? Without judgment initially in terms of when or where or how it's going to be used, then what we build into our way of working is a reflexive as a reflexive connection towards awareness, is a habitual connection towards paying attention, is a behavioral connection towards observation, right? And that's one of the foundational principles of deductive reasoning, deductionist work, investigative work, the scientific method. All of these types of things come together on the basis of how much information you were capable of gathering, right? I know now that I could go into social engineering practices regardless of the sport, and I hate sport, modern day sport, because there's no sport in it anymore. It's all business and preening and glorified models and overpaid millionaires looking to take a dive. I realize that's a massive generalization, but that's an opinion that I have. Doesn't make me right, doesn't make me wrong. It's just an opinion. But because of what I know, and then when the news pops up and something about sport, I don't judge, I just ingest the data. It might be the run of newspapers that I walk past with articles on where people have turned it over to get to the back page to just get the brief headlines on the back, boom, taking it away. If it ever pops up on the radio, I'm building this entity in of being aware of all of the information that orbits my everyday life. And there are many facets of that that don't have a direct effect on me personally and my interests personally, right? So this is why when it comes to that question that I'm asked a lot, and it's wonderful that people are still interested in my opinion, but my answer never changes, right? In terms of what should I read everything, read it all, because what you're dealing with in that scenario is nullifying your predisposition towards early judgment of whether the information is going to be relevant, pertinent, or important. That way, we're more directly open and connected towards what the information is rather than what we're predetermining it to be, which is an excellent habit to build into our way of working. And because we are taking in the information, we are impacting our ability to withstand higher and higher degrees of cognitive loads, which means when the pressure starts to incur, whether it be socially, mentally, emotionally, or all of the above, when the pressure starts to rise, our ability to navigate that in order to focus and stay aware and engaged and connected to the information and where it changes is going to be more on the money because of this preparational example. Now, you could take that quite literally, and if it is that you're involved in the sciences, Ben said read everything. I'm going to go and read some comic books. Yeah, I mean, I'm not saying don't read comic books. I obviously read comic books, but but use your common sense in that area, because there are many authors in the field who are massive names but talk absolute bollocks when it comes to connecting towards real world examples of work. The same for, when you see uh, uh, five tips to pay attention to in order to know if she's cheating or he's hiding a drinking problem or whatever it is. You see these things, and it's indefatigable clickbait because you can't summarize human experience to five examples. You can't. It's impossible. It's like when you hear somebody use the word, I was looking at his body language. Secretly, what they're saying is, I don't know what I'm talking about, right? Which could make you turn off your attention if you're looking to learn there. But what I'm saying is to keep it on so we can understand how these people are communicating outside of, in general. We're building in and a kind of stronger on switch towards our attention levels. We're battling the enemy that is this little voice inside of our head that says, pay attention to me or pay attention over there when we should be paying attention over here. So if you're truly going to be the person that knows, right? When I'm having a conversation, like when I'm in the kind of working world, working example, uh, I just seen a question come in. That's kind of sidetracked me. A question that's come in about the monographs. Bit off topic. How's the new monographs going? Well, um, I appreciate your insight, but there's a deduction that I can make right there. You haven't been on the channel for a while. Um, it's been out for a few months, unless you mean how's it selling, in which case, good. As well as can be expected for a very, very, very niche book. Um, Suffice it to say, I can't retire yet. But there we are. Anyway, just to give you an example, with a few of my clients that are in a kind of a traditional business setting of an office and a break room and a different function and meeting rooms and the occasional cubicle or working group table, people working from home, this type of scenario, right? And these are people that hold senior positions, not as a flex for me, but in terms of a connection towards the amount of information they have to interact with on a day-to-day basis. And we've been working to build in these habitually connected patterns towards the active involvement of information without prejudgment or predetermination for anything. And there was a story that one of the women told me the other day of how she was walking through the office about to start her day and stopped just to ask how one of her colleagues how her son was doing, because as she was walking through a couple of days earlier, she overheard that he was ill, and she just boop filed that one away. And I mean, they already had a pretty good working relationship anyway, but it's stepped up a mark, and it keeps stepping up a mark the more that she does this, right? I mean, she works in finance, so I obviously can't talk about a lot of the things that she's involved in. But she was saying that she is connecting towards information about businesses that they're looking to work with, and because of what she's catching on the radio or hearing on conversations or picking up socially when other people bring up these businesses that affect stock prices and these types of things, that can inform how somebody will make decisions. She's aware of all of this movable data now. So when she's the person that knows in the environment, she's the one that people are looking to for promotions or consults or advice. She is the strongest position in that particular field now because she started to develop this way of working into her everyday life, right? The reason we start to serve up um, our attention to these AI note takers that you wear around your neck. I think it was called Plaudible or Audible or fucking awful or something like that. Right? Or we say write down your phone number, or we say send me a meeting invite, or or whatever it is, whatever app or service or pen, paper, whatever that we ultimately utilize to make sure we don't have to pay attention That's just creating a situation where the information has a possibility to be lost or misplaced. Apps fail, so do computers, so does tech. And AI note taking, the amount of misplaced words I've seen on AI note takers is ridiculous, right? So if you want efficacy, accuracy, and well, it's clarity, precision, and accuracy. If we're looking at the Paulian nine standards of thought, if you want this, then you should be building into your life the adoption of being the one who knows, right? And it starts small. It's just these continual steps that are employed day in and day out, day in and day out. You're essentially learning what helps you pay attention and comparing that to what takes your attention or challenges your attention in order to build better habits around that. Being the one who knows is moving towards the presentation of information without predetermination of its relevance or its significance, right? It is a fairly logical approach to the interaction of data, right? And it's something that I face all the time visually, because visually I am the most unprofessional person that exists. Visually, so like I don't wear suits unless I'm giving a talk, right? I don't, or I'm performing. I am heavily tattooed. I am fond of my version of humor. But like when this adage comes up of the questioning or accepting of whatever the person's purview of professional standards are, I know exactly what's going on in here because I know the ins and outs of modern industry and modern impressions and modern thoughts on certain things. I'm ultimately driving towards being the one who knows. You're the one that's asked for your opinion, your advice on how to do things, and which is why it ultimately connects back to the egoic boundary, right? There was um there was something Denzel Washington said about I think it was about newspapers, and I'm not going to get it worded exactly right. I'm not going to, but he was talking to journalists or someone interviewing him, some kind of press red carpet event. It looked like, um, and it was something like, if you read the paper, you're misinformed, and if you don't read the paper, you're uninformed. You have a responsibility to be first, not right. And that's something that I face in my area time and time again. I don't want to be first. I don't care about being the loudest. I don't care about being the most popular. I don't care about having the most money in the bank or whatever it is. I don't care about any of that. I care about what works. And the only way I'm going to figure out what works is if I do my best as a human being to take it all in and then apply as much as I can within as many situations as I get involved in. The egoic boundary again comes in with the, oh, what if I'm wrong? What's the worst that can happen? What's the worst that can happen? I've gone into situations where I've purposefully tried to say the most wrong thing that I can. To say the most wrong, not offensively wrong. I'm quite good at doing that anyway, but just to try and say the most wrong thing, just to explore what would happen. And if I've gone through the right steps of developing the relationship the situation needs, not exactly making friends or colleagues, whatever it is, there will be specific nuances. It's something that I refer to as the law of nine, but within those moments, I've been giving example observations of pets people have before, and I've said, yeah, so the pet rhino that you have, and you see people do the dog tilt where they go, "Arr?" I don't have a rhino. So in those moments, there are two things that you can do. You can accept wrong and go, oh, and let the moment become a thing. Or you can use their feedback to develop the read further, ultimately being the one who knows, right? Because you know doesn't necessarily mean, at least in my interpretation of it, it doesn't necessarily mean that you have all of the answers. That might be a personal quest that you have, and I do have that. But being the one who knows, to me, is knowing how to figure it out, right? When we are, as much as this guy I used to work with, who's ex-CIA, loathe the description of people reading, right? But that's the easiest way for me of describing what it is without saying body language, because body language is wrong. People reading is a misinterpretation at times, right? And again, personal opinion. But this is the kind of scenario that we're in with people reading. I'm not going to know, based on the presentation of something, what it is that you're communicating non-verbally, or whatever thought it is that you're having at that particular moment. I can't know that. That's body language, where I've seen this, therefore this, which is rubbish. What I can know is how to figure X out. I can know how to figure that out. And it comes back to the most information that I have to help me along my journey. So, like, I'm reminded of that Rudyard Kipling poem, "If," where it finishes and what's more, you'll be a man, my son. So in this particular analogy, and what's more, you'll be the one who knows, my friends. How's that? Right? So that's what I wanted to put to you today, is kind of a an analogy for how you can develop best practices with how you work. Right? Is your concern with being right, or is your concern with figuring out what works in order to figure out what's going on? Because right is about you. Right is all ego, right? And I could sit here and tell you stories of some fantastically impossible stuff that I figured out. Fantastically impossible. But it doesn't mean anything. It doesn't make me better or worse than anyone else. It just means that I have a method. That's all. Adopt this into your way of working, and you will encounter less and less problems along the way. So, as a side note, the first blog, I keep saying that, first vlog, sorry, is up on my main YouTube channel, following my foray into shocking my brainwaves using the Sense AI unit. It's been going good. A lot of the sessions are between 20 and 30 minutes long. There is a combination of a binaural beat element that it's used to develop sleep, focus, attention, memory, and I would argue that, based on the training before that I've gone through, particularly with brainwaves and beyond, I'm kind of at an unfair advantage. And I say unfair advantage towards the device and finding out how far it works, because I've spent so long working on it anyway. But there it is. So if you haven't watched that already, give it a watch. See if it interests you. Ask any questions you want. And yeah, as it turns out, this episode is of season 2. It is the 21st. So we get 2, 2, 1. So next week, we're going to have a special episode. Something special, I think. I haven't quite figured out what it'll be yet. Whether it'll be an Ask Me Anything competition, um, something along those lines. We'll have a celebration together. So join me, bring your friends, bring your family. Above all, bring your dogs. And we'll sit down and talk deduction. And we'll try and figure out something fun. All right, guys. So with that in mind, I'm going to love you and leave you. And I'll see you again soon. All right, folks. Take care. Bye-bye.